In a small town in Normandy, a man named Laurent is putting his house up for sale. His son, Esteban, is 9 years old. The boy is fast in a cart, fast enough that other families have started to notice. Laurent buys a caravan, he loads up the carts, and he starts driving. Over the next several years, that caravan covers 30,000 kilometers a year across Europe. Esteban sleeps beside circuits, eats in the back of the trailer, lives out of a different country every weekend. The family wears out 3 sets of caravan tires just hauling the carts. By the time Esteban Ocon makes his Formula 1 debut, his parents have nothing left to sell. This is the story of a sport that decided that talent alone would never be enough. It's the story of families who mortgage everything for a phone call that never comes, of teenagers who burn through their parents' life savings before they are old enough to drive a road car, of a system so expensive that the difference between a champion and a forgotten name is sometimes just whether your family had more money. Out of 10,000 kids racing karts seriously, one will maybe sit in a Formula 1 car. The others will be forgotten, and most of their families will pay anyway. The journey starts before most kids can read. Max Verstappen sat in a cart at 4 years old. Charles Leclerc was 4. Lando Norris was 7. By the time these kids are 10, they're winning national championships. A competitive cadet kart costs around $4,000. A race spec engine, $2,000 more. Then there's tires, entry fees, fuel, mechanics, transport. The tires alone are absurd. A competitive karting weekend burns through 3 or 4 sets of slicks. Each set costs nearly $300. Some championships force every driver to buy new tires at every round. A family with a kid racing a full European season spends more on rubber than most people spend on rent. Engines need rebuilding every few hundred kilometers. Mechanics charge by the day. By the time a 7-year-old is racing nationally, his family is spending $50,000 a year. By 12, racing internationally, it's $150,000. But these are still the floors, not the ceilings. Karting has no spending cap. Some families spend $100,000 a year. Some families spend $1 million. The richer kids show up with bigger teams, better coaches, more engines, more tires, more testing time. The same kid in the same kart will not lap as fast as the kid with 3 engineers tuning his setup all weekend. And this is where the talent pool starts to lie to you. When a young kid first picks up a kart, you can see who's naturally fast, but raw talent only gets you so far. The kid who can drive every day with the best coach, on the best equipment, will eventually catch the kid who started ahead of him. Then he will pass him. By the time they're 10 and racing nationally, nobody can tell who was actually more talented to begin with. In 2014, a Canadian businessman named Lawrence Stroll took a £60 million stake in Prema, the most successful junior team in Europe, the team his 15-year-old son happened to race for. By the time Lance Stroll arrived in Formula 1, his father had reportedly spent $80 million on his son's career. The kart is the same, the fuel is the same, the track is the same, the team around the kid is not. On a long drive home from a karting race in the south of Italy, a 14-year-old boy named Max Verstappen makes a mistake on the last lap. His father Jos pulls into a petrol station. He tells Max to get out of the van. Then he drives off. Max calls his mother. She picks him up. The father and son don't speak for a week. On another occasion, after another poor karting weekend, Jos pulled Max aside and hit him on the helmet. Hard enough that Jos later admitted it in an interview. His exact words: "I really smashed him on his helmet." Max Verstappen is now a 4-time Formula 1 world champion. He says he's grateful for it. This is the part of karting that doesn't make the highlight reel. The pressure that lands on a child the moment a kart starts costing over $100,000 a year, the pressure that lands harder when the family doesn't have it. At 15, the karts disappear. Now the kid sits in a single-seater for the first time, Formula 4. This is where the bills change shape. The Italian F4 Championship is the most prestigious feeder series on the planet. Norris's path, Antonelli's path, Stroll's path too. A season costs around $300,000. That's just the seat. Add a personal trainer, a manager, simulator time, travel, accommodation in another country, because most 15-year-old racing drivers don't live at home anymore. By the end of one F4 season, a family has spent close to $400,000. But that's the entry-level number. F4 has no spending cap either. A driver with the means, from family, from sponsors, from national backing, can spend $1 million on a single year. Because here's what happens when a kid moves from karts to single-seaters. He's never driven anything with wings before. He has to learn the car from scratch. Or he can buy himself a private testing program and learn it on his own schedule. Every extra day of testing is another day in tune with the car, the limits of it, where the setup works and where it starts to slip away from you. A simulator can teach you a circuit. It cannot teach you what a real F4 car does on the absolute edge. The kid without the money learns this on Friday in the official practice session. The kid with the money has been doing it all year. Multiply that by Formula Regional. Multiply that by Formula 3. The gap doesn't stay the same. It compounds. If you survive F4, the next step is Formula Regional. At least $500,000 a year, often 2 years. Then Formula 3. Around $1.5 million, usually another 2. This is where a young British driver named Zach O'Sullivan was in 2023. O'Sullivan was a good prospect. Williams Academy. British Junior Champion the year before. He finished his F3 season as the championship runner-up, which earned him the next thing on the ladder, a Formula 2 seat with ART, the top team in the series. He never finished the season. In September 2024, with 3 rounds to go, Williams pulled him from the car. Not because he was slow, because the family had run out of money. His own words. In our sport, there are more factors at play than just the stopwatch. The simple issue comes down to funding. O'Sullivan never got to finish the year he had spent his entire career earning. He's 20 years old. He's racing in Japan now, trying to find a new ladder. The Williams livery on his car turned out to be a paint job. The bill underneath was his family's. Each step on the ladder costs more than the last. Each step has fewer seats. Each step kills more careers. And the worst is still coming. Formula 2 is the championship right below Formula 1. A single season costs $2 to $3 million. Most drivers do 2 seasons. Some do 3. The total bill for the F2 stage alone can hit $8 or $9 million before you've ever sat in a Formula 1 car. You're spending all of that to race on F1 weekends and wait for a phone call that probably never comes. In October 2025, the man in charge of Formula 2, a Frenchman named Bruno Michel, was asked whether the new €1 million prize fund for F3 graduates would help drivers afford the jump to F2. His exact words, "It's not going to finance a full season in F2. There's no doubt about that. Winning F2 doesn't guarantee an F1 seat anymore. Finishing in the top 3 doesn't either. The grid has 20 seats. Sometimes one of them opens up, sometimes none of them do. This is also where the wealth gap stops being subtle. In 2021, a Russian named Nikita Mazepin debuted for Haas. His father's potash company, Uralkali, paid Haas $13 million for the 2022 season alone. In 2011, a Venezuelan named Pastor Maldonado signed with Williams. A leaked invoice showed his state oil company sponsor being billed $46 million for a single season. Almost everyone on the grid brings money. The question is just how much, and from where. In December 2025, a 12-year-old girl named Julia Montlor received a phone call. She had been signed to the Mercedes junior team less than a year earlier. She was one of the youngest karters ever signed to an F1 academy. The contract was supposed to be the start of her career. The phone call was Mercedes telling her she was being dropped. She was 12. The same week, Mercedes dropped 3 other juniors. Around the same time, Red Bull cut 6. End of season call. Standard practice now. The thing about F1 academies is that fans misunderstand what they do. The logo on the overalls is not a check. A Red Bull junior contract or a Ferrari driver academy badge does not mean the team is paying for you. Sometimes they cover a portion. Sometimes, for a generational talent, they cover everything. Most of the time, they offer something more valuable than money. Access, simulator time at the F1 factory, a racing coach who has driven F1 cars, a direct line to the people who decide whether you exist. The contract gives a teenager a foot inside the ecosystem, but the family still pays for most of the seat. Some drivers have even paid the academies for the privilege of being signed. The badge is the entry, not the funding. At any given moment, around 40 drivers are signed to the 5 biggest academies: Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, McLaren. Around 2 or 3 of them will reach F1 in any given year. The rest get a phone call. But there is one thing money buys that nothing else does: F1 testing. When the lights are at their brightest, the difference between a driver who makes it and a driver who washes out can be a single weekend. A rookie arriving at his first Grand Prix has to learn the steering wheel buttons, the brake bias settings, the tire warm-up procedure, the team's radio language, the strategy calls. He learns it in front of the world, under pressure, with milliseconds deciding his career. Or he has tested an F1 car for 12 days first. Nikita Mazepin tested his first F1 car when he was a Formula 3 driver, a 2016 Force India at Silverstone mid-season. The next year he tested another Force India. The next year, another. Before his career had really started, he was the team's official development driver, a role he held until Lawrence Stroll bought the team and ended the arrangement. Then, in 2019, Mazepin's family arranged something else, a 12-day private Mercedes testing program in a 2017 W08, 12 days, alone on a circuit, with a full Mercedes team. His coach during the program was Esteban Ocon, who was Mercedes' reserve driver at the time. A normal F1 rookie gets one official test day before his debut, sometimes half a day. Mazepin had 12 in private before he ever signed for a team. By the time he made his Formula 1 debut, he had driven 5 different F1 cars across 4 different eras. Most rookies have driven 1, some have driven 0. Add it up. Karting from age 7 to 15, anywhere from $500,000 to several $1 million before the kid sits in a real car. Formula 4, around at least $400,000 a year, often 2 years. Formula Regional, up to $1 million a year. Formula 3, $1.5 million a year can take up to 2 years. Formula 2, $2 to $3 million a year, often 2 years. Add the years on top of the costs. By the time a kid arrives at the door of Formula 1, his family has spent somewhere between $10 and $20 million across more than a decade. Here's the thing about Formula 1. The system saw the money problem coming decades ago. It tried to fix it. That's why F2 and F3 are spec series. Every car identical. No technical advantage available to buy. The point was to make talent the only variable left. The cars became equal. Everything around the cars did not. What the money buys is not victory. What the money buys is permission to keep trying. Somewhere in a quiet kitchen in Europe right now, a parent is doing the math on a karting season. The kid is asleep upstairs. He doesn't know it yet, but he or she might become the next world champion.